might become a groupie. I don't know.
Well, that's great. Was he a big hit with the 4-year-olds?
Very big hit, all ages. That's really the most impressive achievement or accomplishment is that really everyone from 0 to 99 had some kind of enjoyment
That,
out of the entertainer. So yeah.
that's great. That's great. That's the best. Everybody's super excited and you get to go to those parties. We don't have birthday parties like that once you get older, right?
Well, I mean, I think I need to introduce Babalu to the senior care market. I think he might be missing out on an audience that he didn't know that he could appeal to. So.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the second episode of SimplyThickJohn and Friends, and you can see my friend Amy here. This is where we dive into the world of dysphagia, thickening, and everything that makes swallowing smoother, safer, and a little more sane. I'm your host, John Holahan. I'm the founder of SimplyThick, and I go by SimplyThickJohn. And I'm also the guy who started a TikTok channel just to prove Gary V wrong, that TikTok and dysphagia weren't really a match, but it turns out that I was the one that was wrong, not Gary V. This show is for everyone who ever cared for someone with swallowing challenges and just wanted things to be simpler, safer, and more dignified. Whether you're a clinician, a chef, a caregiver, or a curious problem solver, welcome. You're in the right place. So today's episode is all about eating dessert first, because life is short. Every meal matters, especially for folks who we serve in senior living, where each bite is a chance to bring joy, connection, and real impact. And honestly, I'm right there with it. I've said before, and I'm on the record, that when I turn 80, I'm eating nothing but ice cream. I keep hoping I can start a little early, but my trainer usually says no. Now, sure, we'll touch on the usual chaos of IDDSI levels, kitchen mix-up, powdered thickener, and all the powder explosions we've seen. But today is really going to be about cutting through the noise. It's about what really actually helps, makes life easier, and what brings a little more happiness to the table. So my guest and I have been around this dysphagia world for a while now, and actually we're both in St. Louis doing that. And we're here to help you feel a little more confident, whether you're at the bedside, in the kitchen, or running the whole show. So today, this is my good friend Amy, and someone who's passionate about good food for people as I am. I guess I should say Amy, you say Bollam?
Bollam, yeah.
Bollam, yeah. So Amy Bollam is at DiningRD, and she leads the strategic initiatives that integrate technology solutions with resident-centered dining experiences. Amy has been instrumental in the development of DiningRD's software platforms, including Plateful, Meal Card, and Tableside, which streamline menu management and enhance dining operations. So before we get really into the meat of the matter, we're going to play the game that we like to call Simply Stump John. And the rules are simple. Amy's going to tell me 3 statements about herself, and 2 of them are true, and 1 is a total lie. I'm hoping that she has a good tell. It could be something personal, professional, thickening related, or totally random, and it's my job to figure out which one is a lie. And I take it very seriously, even if I'm not very good at this. So, Amy, what are your 2 truths and a lie?
Okay. Let's see here. First off, I've lived in 6 cities, and
6.
all of them have been on Interstate 70.
Okay.
I'm a Girl Scout, and mashed potatoes are my very favorite food.
Okay, so when you say a Girl Scout, do you mean when you were a kid, or you mean right now?
Oh, I am a Girl Scout.
You are a Girl Scout. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, because the whole thing is to eat dessert first, I'm a little worried about this mashed potatoes thing.
Ooh, okay.
And then the first one's not really fair because you got 6 cities and on Interstate 70.
Sorry, double whammy there. Yeah.
Double whammy. So, it kind of depends on how far we decide is along Interstate 70 there. These are all good ones. Mashed potatoes is so random. I'm thinking you're telling the truth there. I'm thinking it's where you lived. I'm thinking that's your lie. There's going to be some little technicality in there that it's 7 cities and was Interstate 40 or something like that. So I'm going to go with that as the lie.
Okay. No, I have lived on I-70 my entire life.
Really?
Just like you shared, John, here in St. Louis today, but been in Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Columbia, Missouri, all right along good
Oh
old
my.
Interstate 70. So
Like
that's,
I was thinking like St. Louis suburbs with that one.
yeah, no,
No, it's big moves all the way on the different ends.
big moves all the way on the different ends of I-70. So I know it well,
So
that
you'll have to
interstate.
keep your eye on Denver and into Wyoming, I guess, huh?
I guess so. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
So that one's true. So I then I have to say mashed potatoes are not your favorite food, but
Mashed potatoes are my least favorite food.
okay.
Now, since we're talking about the realm of all things dysphagia, and as a food service professional, we all know that art of having to taste test all of the foods and encouraging, I shouldn't say have to, but encouraging, always making sure that we taste test and quality control the food that we serve. And I've had to choke down some mashed potatoes
A
in, my,
lot.
in my day that are not my favorite. So I would
That's
probably be with you, and I'd rather opt for ice cream or dessert instead of mashed
aren't
potatoes.
mashed potatoes on the menu like every day too?
They're on the menu a lot. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, since I'm like that with green vegetables, I guess I can understand.
You would understand. Yes. So
So one thing that never changes in healthcare, whether it's dining, nursery, or therapy, is that nothing ever stays the same. So menus are changing, staffing changes, budgets change. Even residents change day to day. Easier for everyone involved. But we got to start with the obvious first question because it's right in your like bio on your website, and that's like you say eat dessert first. So how does that philosophy show up in your work? What do you mean by it? How do you incorporate that into your dysphagia diets and menu planning?
it's largely a personal philosophy, first and foremost. There really is our tagline here at DiningRD is that food is joy. And isn't that just the truth? I really think in this fast moving technology world, and, we've all seen the futuristic dystopian movies, and, well, we
Yep.
could get all of our necessary nutrients probably packed into a little pill or some powder, but where's the joy in that? So really a lot of that just comes from life is short. Let's eat dessert first. And as that translates into, the work that we do in senior living, and really where a lot of that passion comes from is a personal story about making every single bite count and finding the things that not only bring a resident joy and quality of life and additional dignity, but we know can pack calories and protein and all of those things that a dietitian is looking for in their patient or resident. So that's really where it comes from, is that we may have to be more creative as food service professionals, as caregivers, to say, this is no longer just about kind of, a square meal, if you will, but about what is going to hit for this particular individual. What will this person most benefit from? And maybe that's ice cream, John. Maybe that's, just like you said, maybe it's something that not only helps create longevity, because we can extend someone's life just by making sure that they get the right nutrition or any nutrition. And sometimes that's ice cream. So,
Well, when I think about it, the connection to food and quality of life or things like that. Um, the thing, it's like dessert for me has always been like that top that top thing that like I just wait for. We just had Easter. I celebrate Easter, and I allow myself just a slight number of Brock's jelly beans because there's something about those classic. I'm like drooling now just talking about it. Where like that's you know you could put a lot of stuff in Brock's jelly beans and I would eat it. And I was thinking as you were talking about another time, like I was at this serious business meeting, talking about like acquisitions and stuff, and I'm even in a suit and tie, and we were at a restaurant in Chicago, and they served this mousse, and I swear I lost conscious contact with this world. Like I took a bite and it just all faded away, and then I heard somebody at the table say like, "Look at John," and I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." because I mean, some of those experiences can be so transformative, and how do you bring that to long-term care or nursing home residents or hospital? How do you bring the joy into it? And eating dessert first sounds like a good start to me.
It's a great start. There's also like real legitimate science behind that when it comes to your taste buds, and that for our seniors, for our elders, they hold on to your sweet taste buds. So not to bring back up mashed potatoes again, but I've been known at the bedside to be mixing in sugar into mashed potatoes because it's enough to just bring that flavor out for that individual. And so, of course, our sweet tooth kind of truly is a scientific fact that we hold on to those sweet taste receptors the longest. And so, why not really capitalize on that and make sure that we're using it up? So, yeah. I want to go to Chicago, but I need to know more offline. You need to share more about this mousse in Chicago. I think I'm going to need to go find that.
It's like I almost forgot exactly where the restaurant is because I didn't want to go back and be disappointed.
Oh.
Like I have an idea generally where it was. I could probably find it. I'd have to do some research to come up with it. But it was both like this wonderful experience and kind of embarrassing at the same time, right? Like I just lost the conversation at the table. I mean, I've had some meat dishes where that's happened almost, but not. That's like one of the times I totally remember. It just like the perfection of it just took me away. So we talk a lot about IDDSI, so level 4 mousse, right? That would be good. But because you do a lot of the consulting work across a lot of different facilities, you get to see a broader experience. And what I've found a lot with IDDSI is that vendors have the ability, because we've seen a lot of different places, that we can bring a lot of different knowledge and experience and share that with people. So that's kind of part of the inspiration here, is I want to be able to share what people are seeing across different facilities and regions and things like that. So what are some of the biggest successes and challenges you've seen with implementing IDDSI in different communities?
Yeah, I think you really kind of captured it even at the onset here of our little chat, just about how rapidly our industry is changing. Our industry, my industry being in senior living and long-term care, there is new change happening nearly like minute by minute. Sometimes it feels like, and we know that change is incredibly hard. I mean, for all of us, we're human beings at the end of the day. So anytime we try to bring about a change, it can be really tricky. If I really spend some time kind of reflecting over like really the last, I don't know, 8 or so years of my career and thinking about the reception and perception that people have had when you even mention IDDSI, and are you doing this? Are you making this move? I would say the stigma has changed a little bit, and we're seeing a little bit more on the adoption happening, which is really exciting. I know we'll get into this kind of talking through it, but there are great advantages to implementing what is truly an international standardization. It's right there in the title, but that standardization we all know as, again, caregivers and healthcare professionals. I know there's going to be a lot of healthcare professionals who are listening in today. Wouldn't we all want that as like a standard to the care that we're providing? And there's still a lot of, I think, misnomers. I think that, we continue to try to proactively educate here at DiningRD in the best way that we can to clear up confusion or apprehension around like, oh gosh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to implement IDDSI. Ultimately, fortunate or unfortunate, some of what we tend to hear is can be sort of a fear-based kind of idea based around, well, we'll implement when when we get a tag for this, when we get some kind of, authority telling us we have to do this. And a lot of times I can counter that just simply by saying, but it's very clearly written into any kind of regulatory information that we should always endeavor to observe best practice. And again, from the perspective of being a caregiver, I watched my grandfather through a dysphagia journey. Don't you want a best practice, what's scientifically rooted as a best practice for not only your patients, residents, but your grandfather, father, mother, loved one, because that really can be, I think, maybe sometimes an emotional driver to trying to think through getting over those hurdles about implementing.
Yeah, I tend to find that the more I talk about it and the more I make people feel more comfortable that this is a process and it's not really a black and white thing that it can first come off as, that it's okay, we're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I loved when we did our first cooking webinars where we would 2 hours of making food that's ITSE compliant and testing it. And my co-host, Lori Berger, like the first couple of times she said, well, what if it doesn't come out right? And I said, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want, because we all know in the kitchen, things don't always come out perfectly. And so I find ITSE in the toolkit that you develop, that when you help people understand, yeah, when everything goes right, you probably don't need a lot of advice from us. But when things go wrong, you want to make sure that you have the toolkit so that you can recover and you can repair. And, when I see something that's, like an oh no, to me, it's always, that's where the conversation starts. That's where we need to talk to people. And we need to make sure that the environment that people are creating is that anybody can come to the kitchen and say, hey, we have something we need to address here. And we all understand it's because we're on the team of let's get that meal looking the way it should so that person can eat it. So I've just found that the more we talk about it,
Yeah.
it's been great for helping people, because a lot of people, again, they're just working in their facility, and now all of a sudden you throw this on top of it. ITSE's open up the discussion, and conversations like this are meant to help just share what's going on, to help people feel great that what they're doing is the right thing.
Yeah, totally agree. Talking about it. Yeah. And it feels like we've had to talk about it a lot. We will continue to talk about it. I don't think our work is done. So,
and to me, the biggest success so far is that it finally gives us, like, as difficult as the conversation is about stickiness that we have, how much is too much on the spoon and stuff like that,
mhm.
it's better than the conversation we weren't having before, which is we weren't even talking about it.
It's true.
And so, I knew 25 years ago, the first time I tried a puree, that they were too sticky, because that was my memory of it. I would just go, and people would say, yeah, I know. Or it's too runny and it all runs together. So now we have something we're all agreeing what the targets are. And to me, that's a great first step.
I agree.
So when it comes to your food service operations menu writing perspective, how has ITSE really affected what you're doing there and how you're
Cool.
developing things?
Yeah. So, this is sort of maybe counterintuitive, but in kind of menu writing, world, anyone who's worked in especially acute care or long-term care where there have been these therapeutic clinical diets and diet modifications that are needed, we have to manipulate whatever the main item is so that it can meet the criteria, whether we're talking about, restricting sodium or, in the case of dysphagia, making sure that it's, a right consistency for one of our residents or patients. But what's interesting to me to have watched and continue, I'm watching this happen like right before my eyes, is that we're moving from having to menu something completely different for our individuals who have dysphagia or swallowing challenges. And instead, we're saying use the tools within IDDSI to manipulate whatever the original item was. And again, the other impact there is being able to add quality of life and dignity back to a person who otherwise we would have said, you know, 12 years ago before IDDSI, 15 years ago before IDDSI, we would have said, oh, well, we're only offering the frozen, molded, out of the box items that we have available. You can't have the main menu item because we don't have an equivalent in the pre-packaged, menu items. So I think, again, one of the kind of conversations that I'm trying to have with food service operators is around using the tools, the testing methods as a way to say, it's no longer about what you can and cannot have. This is not black and white. There's some gray area here. And John, you were the one for me, and like my real light bulb moment kind of early on in this process was you kind of equated everything to a banana.
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, I should let you tell the audience, because the banana thing that's really sticks with me, and it's a great example.
Well, what you're referring to is that IDDSI came out and they said that they were a what's the word they use? It's not prescriptive, but it's a
Yes.
it's a descriptive diet. It's not prescriptive.
Yes.
And I didn't understand what that meant. And the banana is the perfect example, because when you consider that
Mm-hmm.
IDDSI was writing for a global audience, the question is, you can't write a list for all the foods in the world. And so they gave us the testing methods and the descriptors. And so the question is, nothing is better at exemplifying this to me than a banana, because we all know there's green bananas that are hard and tough to eat, and then there's the bananas that are ready for banana bread, and they're almost a puree in the skin by themselves. So if you were writing a menu, or you're writing a prescriptive diet prescribing exactly what's included or not, where do you put bananas? And then with IDDSI, they hand you the tools and they say, hey, are bananas on the menu today? You tell me. And so that's always been, you're right, that's a big light bulb moment for people when they understand what's the difference between a descriptive and a prescriptive diet. And I see that with menu writing, right? Like, people want a very prescriptive menu. This is what you do, and then you do this, and then you do that, and then you do that. And then you have all the regulations on the side, like you can't, just add water to dilute it, or you can't. And so what we found helping people with menu writing in this is that we have to put in little phrases at the end of it, because the chicken's different today than it was yesterday. The vendor's going to send in whatever chicken they have. It doesn't matter what chicken you ordered sometimes. They know you need chicken, so they just might not have the one the recipe was developed with. So we always are encouraging people to say, like, use additional food thickener and or broth/stock to ensure you can reach the desired texture. And then that way they're following the recipe, but they have the flexibility they need when they're the person operating the food processor, and the regulator standing over their shoulder, and they say, well, how do you know you're doing that? And we've taught people, you have to use the philosophy that servings in equals servings out, right? We made a big batch of 60 pieces, or chicken for 60. Well, now take a couple of those chicken servings out, and we're going to make the minced and moist. Well, when you chop it up, it may not be the same volume, but you put 2 servings in there. So divide it in half, whatever you end up with. And just little things like that. It's just helping. It's not even helping people kind of rewrite it, but helping them understand it's a process.
Yes.
And then you have the tools to make sure you did it right, and working within the boundaries we've always had.
Yeah.
But it's a lot less prescriptive, and helping them be more descriptive and flexible, because the kitchen's job at the end of the day is to minimize all that variability and all the ingredients they're getting, and produce something that's lovely and tasty for the resident.
Yeah.
At the other end.
Yeah.
So I find we're more into recipe writing than we've ever been. Like, if you told me I was going to be doing food, or that I was going to write a cookbook, I would have thought you were nuts. And I use the word cookbook because then people understand it. If I said, here's my IDDSI process book, people wouldn't understand what I meant.
No.
But that's really what it is it's showing people the process to take the food and process it into IDDSI ready food.
Yeah. So that's such a good call out. And I guess the other thing that just sparks for me is that ITSI is such a departure from the tools that we had previously, where it really was a prescriptive, you may have these foods and you may not have these foods, really creating this like, every healthcare provider, has at least at one point in time documented in some patient or resident's chart about being, non-compliant with their diet. Um, I would venture to say we want to endeavor to not have to say that someone is non-compliant, but to put that kind of lotus of responsibility back on that food service team to say, how can I, back on that registered dietitian, collaborative approach with a speech language pathologist, how can we make this compliant for this
Yeah,
person?
how do you work together, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Knowing what the end goal is, and you have the tools and the flexibility so that you can, whatever somebody's favorite food is, you can sit around and you can think about, and you can collaborate and figure out how are we going to get that whatever done so that they can eat it.
that's
And
exactly.
and you can't send in a recipe to ITSI and they're not going to say, yes, we love this recipe, we're going to bless it. It's having this discussion as a team. Okay, what are the risks, what are the trials, and it's also bringing together that team. So you got the RD making sure that you got the balanced food. You got the dietary manager making sure they can make it. You got the speech therapist making sure that it's not too sticky or that's meeting all the needs for the swallow.
Mhm.
And then let's try it. Let's see if we can get him to eat this. It's a great thing, really.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So just switching gears a little bit here. How do you find training kitchen and service staff to embrace ITSI and feel confident serving these modified diets now? What tips do you have, or what works best? What have you seen?
Yeah, gosh, I think that there's a real connection to what you led off with, kind of asking about like what my experience has been, kind of seeing people implement ITSI and overcoming some of the resistance to change about what this means and implementing it. I think this is really the single greatest advantage about ITSI is to take baby steps as is comfortable for that collective care team, the food service department. Take some baby steps. You can continue doing your menu operation as you've been doing it. But now set aside a few portions of each of the modifications that you've done, do the testing methods. You don't have to say that you're full on doing ITSI yet. Just try. I mean, I think it goes back to what you were saying, John. It's okay that it might not turn out quite the same way that it did last week, but one of the single greatest tools, I mean, a whole toolkit really that you referred to, are these testing methods that, we had some ability to do that maybe with some of the liquids, maybe not at a rural community in the middle of Missouri. It's not going to have what is it, a viscometer to, double check the viscosity of you know, your liquids, but real practical, usable tools. The
Yep.
fork test, the spoon tilt test, the, fingertip and chopstick. I mean, there there are so many things that when I'm kind of encountering somebody who might be just little resistant, kind of unsure of where to start, print off the testing methods and start, grabbing a test plate off of your steam table and try and see, would this have been compliant with a minced and moist? Would this have been compliant with soft and bite size? And go from there, because I think that's really where it all has to start, is just that familiarity, that comfort with how to use the tools.
See, I always start, and I truly believe this. I've never run into a single person working in the kitchen at a nursing home or a hospital that wanted to make bad food that people wouldn't
Mm,
eat. And so what ITSE to me has done, is it's given them a lot more structure around what they're doing and why. And I've found that when I start and I explain the way I explain the food pyramid, or the IDDSI inverted food pyramid, is it's just like eating. You're just chewing food and mixing it with your saliva.
Mm.
And we're just trying to figure out where along that continuum from solid food down to a puree or liquidized, we need to prepare the food with our kitchen equipment and some artificial liquid, whether it's a barbecue sauce or an extremely thick stock or whatever you're putting in there. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help them with their ability and to give them the food that they can still process themselves as much as they can. And then you can kind of see the light bulb go off. And then you're like, okay, now let's make sure it's not too sticky because you don't want it to stick. Let's make sure that there's not loose liquids because that's tough to manage in the mouth.
Yeah.
So giving people the tools and kind of the background, and then everybody being on the same page, because we all know, I mean, this never happened, right? We're like, the facility would get a new speech therapist over the weekend and everybody comes back on Monday and the entire menu has changed or the entire process has changed because or you get a new dietitian and everything changes, or even worse, up the road at the hospital they get a new dietary manager or speech therapist and now the menu, what they used to send us with the menu order or diet order with the patient when they came down here, is totally not the same.
Mhm.
And we're eliminating a lot of that. We're all what do you call it, rowing in the same direction.
It's feeling a little bit more like we're all rowing in the same direction, which I think is a big a big step forward for sure.
Yeah.
Using
Well, and then the other thing from our perspective is we can begin to learn from our friends overseas and across the world. So we're not all just kind of doing our own thing and not being able to translate.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of stuff I've learned from people who are not in the United States has been tremendous. So it's been great.
Yeah, I would agree.
Wow, that was a pretty fast half hour, wasn't it?
It did go by fast, although this is our experience, John. Is
Yes.
I could talk to you about these things all day long. So
Yes. Unfortunately, we try to put like a little time limit on it.
oh, okay.
So I do want to thank you so much for coming on. And Amy, it's been great to catch up with you again, and I really appreciate you sharing your insights and stories today. So where's the best place for people to follow up with you if they have any questions or they just want to connect with you?
Yeah, sure. Connect on LinkedIn. I love being able to engage with people on LinkedIn and have good conversations there. So that's great. Go out to our website, DiningRD.com, and connect with us there.
It's B as in boy, OLLAM as in Mary,
You
right?
got it. Yeah.
Bollam. Okay. Everyone, thanks for watching. If this was helpful, pass it along. And we'll see you next time, probably in about 2 weeks on Simply Thick John and Friends. So stay thick out there.